Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Sincerely Agile with Mary. Now, today we're looking at sustainable change beyond agile transformations. And to have this conversation with me, I have Nathalie Brochstein, and I'm just going to bring her up to the show. Hello, Natalie.
Hey, hello. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. And yourself?
I'm doing good. It is Saturday evening your time, isn't it?
Sunday. It is
Sunday
Sunday over
evening.
here.
Oh,
Yes,
Sunday evening. And
it
it's
is
Sunday
Sunday
morning
over
over
here.
here in San Francisco.
Absolutely. And what's the weather like for you?
It's beautiful. After this show, I'm going to go out and get a hike outside in nature.
Wow. It's a bit dull over here. I'm just on the outskirts of London in Kent. It's a little bit dull. It's been raining a little bit. So I think I'm going to be indoors after the show.
All right.
So how have you been? You're joining from California. What was that like over there? Especially during the pandemic.
Oh my gosh. So I'm actually joining from San Francisco, California, right
Hmm.
in the heart of the city. And during the pandemic, it was very strange to be people come to a city to be able to intermingle, to connect on ideas, to exchange, to be brought in from many different cultures. And during the pandemic, we were all secluded. We were all in
Yes.
our own separate spaces. So
Yes.
walking around the city was really difficult. It was really it was a hard thing to do. How was it for you in Kent?
Well, it was pretty much the same experience globally, wasn't it? Businesses suddenly had to find different ways to operate individually. From a personal perspective, we were homebound. But the funny thing for me, I said to a friend that I didn't feel the lockdown that much because I am quite a homie, to be honest. But we did. I lost an aunt, and
Sorry.
like I have said so many times, COVID is quite a paradox. There were a lot of negatives, but COVID also um, gave us an awakening, if you like, as individuals, as people, to just refocus on humanity. And for that, I think there's a huge benefit. And if you look at what's happening within organizations today, there's more. We've been talking about work-life balance for so many years, but there's just so much more drive towards that option to work from home so that people can have a much more balanced experience of work life. So overall, that's what it has been for me, and I like the positive side of it. The negative side, there was nothing anybody could do about it, but that's it. That's life, huh?
Yeah.
So what was business like for you
So what's business like for me during the pandemic?
during the pandemic?
During the
Exactly, what did you
pandemic.
have to do differently?
Yeah, so for me, it was significant change because I was doing a lot of flying, spent a lot of my work on airplanes going to clients. And
Yeah.
during the pandemic, of course, what changed is that I started working from home.
Hmm.
And I wasn't set up for that at all because for me, and I would, if you were to ask me 4 years ago, I would say that to really coach someone, you have to be there in person. And I had to learn from that, I'm like, that's, I can be effective, and now I'm realizing in some ways even more effective if I'm remote. So for me, that was really the tipping point for me to embrace this challenge
Yeah.
and create that pivot.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, we have a few people joining us right now. We've got Victoria, we've got Margaret Salami. Hello, mommy. That's my mom in Arizona. Um, and Ronke, and we've got a few people joining also on other platforms. Now, Natalie, I'm just going to go back to my banners. Today, we're looking at sustainable change beyond agile transformations. But before we go ahead and start looking at, the questions to guide our conversation, I would just like to introduce you to our audience properly. So I am just going to read your bio. So, using proven methods developed during her successful career as a Silicon Valley tech executive, Nathalie Brochstein builds agile organizations while giving team members a voice so they feel valued, engaged, and motivated. Over the course of her 20-year career as an organizational design expert and digital strategist, Natalie has led clients from startups to Fortune 100 companies through the transition from heavy, outdated project management processes to innovative, effective, and team based ecosystems. As an executive consultant, Natalie builds more adaptable tech leaders through intensive one on one coaching and leadership team training. As an organizational design leader, her LC5 framework defines a clear set of success metrics, facilitates discussion on how to meet them, then coaches teams forward at every step of their journey. She holds certifications in executive coaching from CTI, organizational analysis from Stanford University, skilled agile consultant, and has a master's degree in psychology. Her deep experience in digital engineering empowers her to significantly enhance the ability of C level executives and their teams to deliver consistent value, embrace agility within the organizations, and implement lean agile frameworks to ensure lasting growth and power. Now, this is an impressive bio, Natalie. I particularly like the fact that you talk about coaching leaders one on one forward. And that is one of the questions that I have for you today about, leadership, becoming coaches, essentially. Nathalie Brochstein, you are welcome to Sincerely Agile with Mary. It is
Thank
such,
you so much. I'm really feeling grateful to be here. Thank you.
thank you for making time. So, my first question to you, Natalie, is why leadership? You are so focused on leadership. Why leadership?
Okay, that's a really good question. So, organizations of all sizes and from all industries, they bring me on to optimize the effectiveness of their leaders. Now, one of the reasons is that if we look at the large scale agile transformations, and that's really what I want to focus on here, is that this came from software, right? In 2001, the Agile Manifesto, there was this idea of we can do better at delivering software. And from that, they tried to scale it up. Now, it worked great as a delivery in a delivery focus. But what happened was is that it wasn't communicated in a way that the leaders at the top really understood what was going on. And so when we look at the next challenge for digital leaders, it's really to being able to move to leading the change themselves. I'm going to give you one example is that there is have you heard of the version that was by version 1 and now it's digital AI, the state of Agile report?
It comes out every year for the
It
last 15
comes out
years.
every year. And they said the most significant barriers for Agile adoption, 41% is the absence of leadership participation. 40% is inadequate management support and sponsorship. So I'm going to ask you, who is leading? Who's steering? If it's
Who's
not
staring?
leadership, right?
Absolutely. And if it's not leadership that's staring, you and I know that that's not going to be a huge success for long.
Nope, nope. And we look at it. There's what I see is the disconnect between for leaders to really be able to take charge on this is they still see it as this is a software thing. This is an engineering thing. It's
Hmm.
not a business thing. And that's quite the paradigm, right? Because the whole purpose is we're doing this theoretically for the business. But
Absolutely.
as organizations scale and they become bigger and bigger, they start to have a disconnect between the technology and the business. And so the reasons that I work with leaders to bring that together is that helping them realize that this is something that needs to happen together. There needs to be true business value in these changes.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I like what you just said about how, we have that disconnect when organization starts to get bigger and bigger. I mean, you're a coach, you've been a coach at Silicon Valley for a while. So you have had a lot of experiences with startups. And one of the things we know about startups, or the characteristics, if you like, is that they are very entrepreneurial. in their approach to doing things, isn't it? And when the organization starts getting bigger and bigger, then we start forming all these hierarchies, and we start having that, disconnect, and
Exactly.
and moving further and further away from the customers that we serve, so to speak. Now, in terms of leadership, leading, it is very critical because they need to, we often say it's their own dog food. They need to lead by example in order for the change to actually be sustainable. They need to also not just learn and not just support it, but also know what it is they must do. And I like you talked about coaching a lot in your bio, because the environment has changed so much now that it's not enough to just be that command and control leader anymore. It wouldn't serve any organization well. Good one, Natalie. Thank you very much. My next question, and the reason I ask this is that you have worked with leaders, like I just said, in Silicon Valley, and we have had a lot of success from that part of the world in terms of driving innovation and driving technology. So here's my question based on that. Is there a consistent leadership style or behavior in a typical Silicon Valley leader that drives success and that we should be modeling? You know.
Okay, so let me look at that question. So Silicon Valley is a place where it pulls in, sometimes we call it the island of misfit toys. A lot of people that came with very strong passion in an area, they come together to converge and exchange ideas. You'll go to a coffee shop and everybody's talking about this idea that they want to create as this next best startup. What's interesting here is that it's about their passion. And so I want to connect it also what you said about work-life balance is there's a difference between a stressful response, which is from outside in, to a passionate response, which is the inside out. And so when I talk to many of the leaders or someone, let's not even say a leader, this is a person I meet at a coffee shop that has this idea of how he's going to change the world with this new app that they're creating. The fact that they're working night and day and so forth, it's not because someone's telling them to do it. It's because they're passionate about the change that they want to bring, right? And so I would say that for one is what is a place that gets pulled, and I see that in many different cities. So that's one value that you're going to see specifically in the Silicon Valley, is that there's a strong purpose to their work.
Hmm.
Uh, the other piece that's going to come into play and that very much will dictate if this idea will survive into something bigger is two-part. One is you have to be able to persist through very difficult times. If you look at the example of the iPhone, it came out 30 years after Apple, right? So many different you have an idea, you start a company, you're attuned to what is going on in the market, and you're pivoting and you're pivoting and you're changing, and you're always listening and adapting. So if we look at additional values that we
Hmm.
see that persistence, that mindset of I'm going to continue and focus on it,
Yeah.
even if it's uncomfortable,
Yeah.
even if it's not making me popular, even if it's not making me money. And the other is really listening to what the customers are saying and being willing to let go and pivot and change.
Oh, I really like those three attributes you just shared with us. The first one was purposeful connection. Purposeful
Absolutely.
connection. The
Purposeful connection.
second one is persistence. And the third one is listening. And boy, do we need that still today, especially in an environment that is, changing ever so frequently. We need a workforce that is purposefully engaged. I mean, we often talk about purpose, and mastery, isn't it? We need those two. We need to be able to ensure that, like you said, people come to work because they want to be there, because they feel a connection to what they are doing, because they connect to that bigger picture. That is very important. Persistence. I mean, things are changing there, and they are changing ever so quickly. We just need to keep at it. We can't afford to give up. And of course, listening, because that's something that not a lot of us do very well. We need to listen to our customers. We need to listen to our workforce. We need to, you know, uh, uh, um, speak less, and just give that space, create that space where the people who actually doing the work have a voice. Because when we look at organizations that should have been at the forefront of their industry today but that are not, it was because these were lacking. They weren't listening. They weren't creating a safe environment for the people who actually did the work, for the people who were close to the customers. So very, very important. Purposeful connection, persistence, and listening. Thank you very much, Natalie. And my next question for you is, the reasons for change must engage people, like we just said, emotionally and rationally. Why both? I think you've sort of answered that, but let's take a shot at it.
Well, of course, humans are not robots,
Yeah.
right? And so we need to have a purpose for what we do. It needs to align both with our logic, with our brain, and with our heart, whatever steering us from inside, with
Mm-hmm.
our moral belief, with our values.
Mm.
One of the most difficult aspects of change is you
Mm-hmm.
can't force people to do anything, right? They need to want to do that. And in order for them to want to do that, it needs to make sense to them and it needs to feel right, you know? And we're seeing that with people call it the great attrition, but I like to use just the same term you used, Mary, is the great awakening that happened during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Is we started looking at, it's like, am I doing things that are really making me feel good about myself? Right? And if not, then why wait? Let's make that change now. Let's find the route that is really going to be something that's going to that makes sense and feel like a good fit for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so balancing both the logical with the why is very important. It needs to make sense. As a leader, you
Mm-hmm.
need to explain the reasoning behind it and not just tell people to do it, because
Exactly.
people have a lot of choices. And it needs to be connected to their values so that they feel like they're feeling like they're doing something good.
Absolutely. And as leaders, we need to be able to communicate that why in a way that really resonates with people, not just like you said, as though we're just giving instruction. We're doing this and that's it. I mean, what I often say is, you will get compliance, not commitment. You
Oh,
will
I
get
love that.
compliance, but you will not
Right.
have commitment.
And right now with the Great Awakening, you're not even going to get compliance.
Absolutely.
Whoa.
Now, the thing is, I feel that the reason sometimes, some leaders think the command and control way is best is because it's faster. Yes, it might be faster, but will it endure? Will it endure? You will get, like I said before, compliance in the short term, but not commitment in the long term. Thank you, Natalie. And I'm just going to highlight some of the comments that our audience are making for you to see there. We've got a LinkedIn user. Unfortunately, we can't see your name. Saying purpose, persistence, pivot, absolutely active listening, resonating with that person there. Stella saying some leaders are the worst at effective communication, both to internal and external customers. We really do need our leaders to listen. We really do. And people who rely on leaders to just lead don't grow. Well, fair enough, but we still need the leaders to connect to the people they are leading, is what we're saying. And what we really want people, leaders, to do is to create that environment in which people can grow. Because I often say it's not about followership. I know followership is not a word given social media, usage and all of that. But we all need to take responsibility for leadership in our spaces. And then I have again purposefulness, persistent listening, great attributes for success. Also, when leaders encourage an environment where mistakes are seen as opportunities for improvement, we build high performance teams. Absolutely, because it's feedback, not failure, right? It is feedback, not failure. So we have comments here, not necessarily questions for you, Natalie. So I'm going to go back to my questions and pick another question for you. What is the value of coaching in a transformation?
Uh, so before I dive into answering that, I just
Yeah.
want to point out one piece of information because people were complaining about their leaders. And one one statement that I like to repeat and work with leaders on, and this connects to the coaching, is truly uh, stellar leadership is when what you say, what you think, what you do, and what you behave are all aligned. That's leading clearly. If you say something and you act in a different way, very quickly the people on the teams are going to get confused and they're not going to trust you. And so I really want to emphasize that. If we say something,
Mm-hmm.
our words are going to be tested against our actions. So I'm going to jump into the topic of coaching. So when we talk about, and specifically around agile coaching, so I've done a fair enough of training on agile ways of working and different ways of working. And what I was receiving is the day after the training, when people go back to the office, is when I get the most questions because you get all this theory and then you go into your work site and you're like, wait a second, now, no, how do I integrate this into my actual work? And so that's where the need for coaching came into place. So training is important because it gives you ideas on different ways to work. Coaching creates a safe space for you to talk through those ideas, think about them together, and then find a way in which you want to apply them to your work. And so if we think about coaching as we have action, choice, and then reaction. So it's a comfortable space for you to look at your different choices and probably tone down that reactivity to to thinking that the first idea that comes to place is the one that I'm going to act on, and look at the different options in front of you to find out what are some intentional ways that you can behave to lead your organization.
Very, very important. I mean, I like what you said at the beginning there. You said what we say, what we think, or perhaps the other way around, what we think, what we say, and what we do must be in alignment. And it's really important that you mention that because it's just like talking about psychological safety, for example. You would often hear this is a safe space, right? Okay, this is a safe space, and then someone says something and it doesn't quite feel like it is a safe space. That is a very good example, where maybe someone says something and they are shut down, or someone tries something. I mean, after all, we're supposed to be experimenting in this environment, and it doesn't go quite right. And before you know it, people revert to the old behaviors, to the familiar behaviors, and this is supposed to be a safe environment. So it is really, really important that we take a coaching approach at every level, right? Every level, both team level, middle level, and the executive level, so that people understand how to really, what's the word I'm looking for, ensure that the change becomes part of the fabric. Because if you rely just on training, it will not be sustainable. Coaching is what then really helps you take that transformation further and deeper, in my opinion.
Yes, absolutely. Uh, so much of our behavior we're also
Mhm.
can be unaware of, right? And so coaching allows you to, many times I'll do a 360 survey in which I'll
Mhm.
ask folks all around about what are the strengths of this leader? What are some challenges? And
Yeah.
then I'll talk with them to reflect back on this is the way that you're seen by others in
Exactly.
your organization.
Yeah.
And a lot of times you'll be surprised. And
Mhm.
so this is an opportunity to create a safe space, a one-on-one with a leader to talk through, uh, I said this was a safe space,
Mhm.
but then I lost my temper over here. So what happened? and how can I use that as a learning experience to explain that, hey, I'm human, and I'm going to try to learn from that experience
Mhm.
and and really create the safety as opposed to just talking about it.
Exactly. And that is where our alliance comes in. That is where our safety protocols, if you like, comes in. When you talk about psychological safety, what are your protocols? What protocols are you creating collectively to ensure that you do have psychological safety? And with coaching, again, you talked about self-awareness. Because, like you said, sometimes we don't even know we do these things. We don't even know we say these things. We are not even aware of how we show up. So many years ago, I was working with a leader, and one of the things I said to her was that you already come with authority, and they are very aware of that. Okay. So it's important that you do not you know, um, make that even bigger than it should be in terms of the barrier that already creates. You're the one writing their checks. You're the one, their performance appraisal ends up with. So all of that is already there, and that the people working with you or for you are already aware of. So that level of awareness, getting to know who we are, how we show up, it is so important, and we can only achieve that by through coaching, right? We
Yes,
can only achieve that
absolutely.
through coaching.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And one piece that I always emphasize
Yeah.
is that the role of the manager might have been to tell people what to do, but a leader is to inspire people to be their best.
Absolutely. And they need to be coached to step into that space.
As a
Okay.
coach, they need to learn how to coach their teams to be able to really be at their best.
Absolutely. Shifting from that telling to coaching.
Exactly.
I often like the metaphor of becoming a gardener so that you can create that
I
environment.
love that. That's great.
Yes. So I'm just going to highlight some more comments here. Lost count at some leaders' roadmaps makes sense to them, doesn't to the team, because the team are not carried along. But Stella, I think it's getting better. What do you think, Natalie? Because today we're talking about top down and bottom up. So at least we're meeting each other halfway now. What do you think, Natalie?
So you're asking if we're meeting each other halfway.
Yeah,
I think I'm always seeing that we are making improvements, that things are getting better, and there's a long way to go.
there's still a very long way to go.
There's still a long way to
Absolutely.
go.
Absolutely.
So the connection, what I'm hearing being pointed out, which I really think is important, and it's a tipping point in large organizations,
Mhm.
is again that disconnect between business and technical. And the way that we get aligned and we remove that disconnect is we focus on the customer.
Absolutely. Coming together to focus on the customer, because
Coming
it
together
doesn't
to
it doesn't
focus.
matter how amazing your technology solution is. If it doesn't serve the customer, it's no good to anybody. No good to
Exactly.
anybody.
Exactly.
And Stella says intentional and smart ways to lead an organization. Peter says great conversation going on, following from Kenya. Nice to have you here, Peter. Thank you very much. Think, say, do behavior. Absolutely. Is the new self metric for leaders and teams. Absolutely.
Love it.
SWOT analysis often not done in organizations in true form. I see a lot of ad hoc SWOT. They're not being strategic and intentional about it. And SWOT analysis is a very powerful tool. Very, very powerful tool. Now, that takes me to this one, which I find really interesting, and I really would like you to tell us more about this. Now, LC stands for leading clearly. Now, you designed the LC5 leadership framework that defines a clear set of success metrics. How does the framework help drive sustainability? And now I'm just going to show what that framework looks like. You've got targets, customers, technology, culture, and participants. Tell us more about that. I'm just going to bring the question back
Yeah,
up.
absolutely. So when I speak about sustainability, I
Yeah.
like to talk about two different areas for organization.
Mm-hmm.
One is delivery within the organization, looking internally at ways to improve delivery. So sustainable changes, continuously making changes to increase performance of delivery, and products and services to sustain and grow revenue streams. We're continuously changing our products and services so that they will adapt to customer needs.
Mm-hmm.
And so, looking at these two different areas, I went to Stanford and studied organizational design. And when I was looking at it, I was seeing that what happens in large organizations, especially organizations that have done such great work in getting their technical delivery teams to use Agile, is that the terminology that's being used is a disconnect. You've got a little bit of a Tower of Babel going on, where the technology teams are talking in terms, but business are talking in different terms. So what the LC5 is a very simple framework that allows leaders in technology and from the business to use the same terminology to evaluate their organization. For example, one aspect of the five is a customer. So if I take a digital strategy leader and I ask them, how do you define that our customer? Who is our customer? How well do you understand their needs?
Mm-hmm.
And then I ask somebody from the business the same question. If they come up with very similar language and it makes sense, then that means that's a healthy area.
Yeah,
If they have two different ideas of who the customer is, I know that that's a place that we got to focus.
that's a good one. That's a good one. So it sort of gives you an opportunity to do an assessment, um, or a diagnostics, if you like, of the organization as you're having those conversations with people from different parts of the organization. I mean, like you said before, Natalie, we still have some way to go. Agile started from, the technology area. Even before, Agile became a huge thing, we've always had issues with business and technology. It was always a case of us and them. But you know what? Things are moving on. We may not be where we want to be now, but things are moving on. I mean, for example, we have DevOps now, where we are even, seeking more collaboration, even within the technology environment. We're seeking more collaboration with the business. Today, we're talking about value streams, right? So we're talking more about business agility. It's not just about agile for the technology department anymore. It's about the entire organization, focusing on business agility. So we're talking finance, we're talking sales, we're talking marketing. So yeah, we're making progress slowly, and I like all the components of this framework. What targets, what customers, what technology, what's the culture like, who are the participants? So when you say participants, are you talking about the people internally or both internally and externally?
I love that question because that's exactly what the leaders I talk to ask me. And participants is everyone you work with to deliver to your customers. So if I look at my FTEs, my full time employees, and I look at my vendors, I look at folks that I have strategic partnership with, I look at my contractors, everyone's going to have a different set of motivations. I have to look at what is the balance and how do I motivate according to each one's purpose. Right? If I'm asking folks to work lots of hours, an FTE will be like, hey, wait a second. A contract will be like, oh, great, I get paid for by the hour. And so I have to have all of these in consideration when I decide how to structure my organization and how to motivate people.
Having a systems approach, so that's things that so that you have a balance, so to speak. And I like the example you just gave. If you're asking people to do more work, more hours, the contractors will be excited, but hey, finance would be like, where am I going to get all this money to pay? So we need to find that right balance there. Very, very important. Yeah, it looks like a great framework to use. And the next question: organizations can only mature or improve as much as the environment allows. What's the challenge here for sustainability? We've sort of touched on it a little bit, but what can you say about this, Natalie?
So there's a few different ways to look at that question. So
Mm-hmm.
one piece that, and I'm gonna start with something that I've seen a lot happen within technology, within the out of the box frameworks, is this concept of maturity assessments. And I've got to say that I'm opposed to maturity assessments. I'm not someone who's going to be advocating it because what they're looking at is they're focusing on this level of maturity as if that's where we want to go. That's not what we want to achieve, is this maturity. What we want to achieve is working together towards customer centricity, right? And so if we think about, okay, so this team is very mature because they have stand-ups every day. Another team, what about their maturity if they have communication with their customer and are pivoting constantly based off of what's going on with them? As a leader, which team do you think is going to be more mature, right? Which one is going to be more effective? And so, that is what I'm going to say about maturity assessment, is that we
Mhm.
have to be thinking about what it is that our goal. And if our goal as an organization is to be able to provide valuable services and products to our customers, then that's the area that we want to focus on.
Absolutely. And you know what? Talking about assessments, I mean, there's nothing wrong in us looking at how well we're doing. It depends on how we use the eventual outcome of that assessment, in my opinion. And for me, we're not doing agile for the sake of agile. We are doing agile for a reason, and for the most part today we're talking business agility. It's about being, competitive in our industry. It's about serving the customer. It's about ensuring longevity for this, for our organization. So when we decide as an organization to embark on a transformation, what exactly is it we're trying to achieve? That should be the focus. Is it, you know quality? Is it time to market? Is it, our bottom line? Whatever it is it to satisfy the customers ultimately, which is usually, which should be our first priority? That should be what we're looking at in terms of metrics. What metrics matter? For me, it is about looking at the metrics that helps you achieve your business goals. Okay, that is what is important to me.
And Mary, I'm going to add one other piece there that I'm seeing too often, and it's
Yeah.
really tricky, and it shows our mindset is how many times are transformations being thought of as a project itself? I'm invoking, right? I wanted to have a transformation. How much is it going to cost? When am I going to get there? And what's the scope of it? Right. And that maturity assessments they can steer us in that direction. It's like, so we want to be at level 7. How much is it going to cost to get there? How long will it take? And it's like, no,
Agility is a journey. It is a
it's,
journey. There is no end state when it
we
comes
are
to agility.
constantly growing. And so when we
Yeah.
talk about beyond agile, we're
Yeah.
talking about sustainable change, looking at all 5 aspects to see
Hmm.
how do we improve our culture, if that's the area that we need to focus on right
Yeah.
now. Maybe our area is participants or our targets that are not aligned from the strategic all the way down to the teams. Maybe they're not clear. And I saw that in the comments, is
Yeah.
that the leaders are deciding something, but the teams don't understand the why. So that means that line of sight is not clear.
Hmm.
So that
Hmm.
might be another area. But if we're always listening, there's always going to be an area that we can improve upon.
Yeah, and of course, we do team assessments and all of that, but that is not for me. The goal there should be, where do I need to improve, or where do we need to improve as a team? What is the data or the information we're gathering? Our retrospectives? What's coming out of our retrospectives? What are the gaps? What do we need to change? What do we need to improve on? That is what matters. It's not about whether you're in level 3 or level 7. Those
Yeah,
numbers mean nothing. They absolutely mean nothing. So it is
right.
what you do with the gaps that you
Exactly.
identify that really, really matters. And for me, every time we talk about improvement, it always takes me back to the Agile Manifesto. It talks about uncovering. It didn't say we have uncovered,
Right. Right.
we are uncovering, right? So it's a never ending journey. And yes, we're in it for the long haul. And I think we have some more comments here. Um, okay. I like the idea that both IT and business ultimate focus should be on the customer. Yes, too often we hear businesses don't understand IT and vice versa. When we have one currency, i.e., the customer's need, It helps to build a one team engagement. Absolutely. I wish I could see your name. That's a very good comment there. And we have Grace just joined us from Abuja. And we have Ella. Metric and data is important towards business agility. We need data to make decisions. Absolutely. We need data to make informed decisions and to also make balanced decisions. But before you gather that data, you need to know what, the metrics that matter to you. And sometimes I feel, Natalie, you can jump in here, that sometimes in the quest to have metrics, we are measuring everything and anything. Okay,
right?
everything. And that in itself, another thing we must really, really remember when we're gathering metrics is that it takes a lot of effort. So if you're spending your resources to gather data that is of no use to you, you're just wasting resources. Natalie, what do you say to that?
Yes, absolutely. And so when we look at creating a dashboard, it's really no more than 6 items to focus on, and they all have to be somehow related to our interaction with our customer.
Exactly.
It's too easy to create all of these outputs. How many lines of code did we create? How many features did we deliver, and so forth? But so what? Really,
So
from a
what?
customer
Exactly.
perspective, so what? You
Exactly. I mean, the customers don't care about your project. They don't care about your numbers in terms of velocity. All they care about is a working product or an excellent service. That is all they care about. So we really, really need to be careful not to overwhelm ourselves and running after metrics that doesn't really add value to the customer.
I'm going to give you another point on
Yeah.
that I see really important is that as humans,
Yeah.
we want to please. We're looking for ways to please. And if we don't have a view of our customer, we're going to try to please someone else, our
Hmm.
manager, our team lead, someone else. And the way that we'll do that is with some sort of outputs. So if we all focus on really understanding our customer and the metrics that show are they satisfied with using
Mm-hmm.
our using our tool, with using our product or services, did this delight them or did this disappoint them? If we all gather around that, then we're focusing on something that's really going to help us grow our business.
Mm.
If we focus on output metrics, we're going to be going all over the place and we're not going to achieve the results that we're aiming
We're
for.
gonna be a feature factory. We're gonna be
We're going to be
churning out
a
stuff.
factory.
Feature factory that doesn't deliver value to the end customer. So, as organizations today, we really need to make sure that we're organizing internally in a way that ensures we can deliver to the customer and get that quick feedback loop to steer us essentially in the right direction. I mean, all said and done, I always say these are not easy times to be a leader. These are not easy times. I mean, on the one hand, you can say, oh, we have a lot of tools out there, we have a lot of resources out there, but things are changing ever so quickly. So being a leader today is not, it's not a walk in the park, to be honest. We must give it to them. It's not a walk in the park. And this is where organizing internally, organizational agility, that is where that comes in to help you leverage the resources, the people you have and the resources you have in order to then deliver, because it's a knowledge economy.
Yep.
So we really need to organize based on the fact that it is a knowledge economy. That's so, so important. And Stella is saying organizations need to appreciate what agilists and coaches bring to the table in terms of value. Absolutely. We need to be appreciated. And I think we are somewhat. Right. What other questions do I have for you, Natalie? Okay. This one here. It is no longer, again, in the course of our conversation, we've touched on it. It is no longer a seller's market. Consumers' preference changes ever so quickly. How can organizations sustain change on a dime for a dime?
Okay, well, that is a question. Is not how can they must in order to survive.
We
The whole
must.
point they must. You must, and that is what motivates you. That's what keeps you purpose driven. Is this attunement to your customer and what's working for them, right? And so this may sound like a simple challenge, and for a large organization, it's a critical mindset shift. Stop celebrating that we got something out there.
Hmm.
Instead, celebrate an increase in customer satisfaction.
Right.
What would happen if we did that?
I like that. I actually like that.
Yep. Yep. The shift is going to encourage teams to focus on pleasing their customer as opposed to their managers. It's going to move it all in the direction that we want to go. Now, this is easier said than done, but once we start lining up to a small set of the right metrics that are customer focused,
A
you're going to
small
see things
set.
change.
A small set.
Small set, small set. I want to be able to meet you as I pass by the cafeteria and ask you, how's our customer doing? And then you can tell me our net promoter score is here, the customer satisfaction is this, four metrics max. And it's like, okay, great. Or hey, why don't we try on this? Or what can we do to improve that?
Not velocity, not the number of stories. I really like that. And I'm talking about being able to change on a dime for a dime because change is constant. And like you said, it's about satisfying the customer. So if the customer doesn't want A anymore, they now want B, how can we very quickly make that change in order to continuously satisfy our customers and make sure that they have the experience they deserve and that our net promoter score is looking good. More comments I see. I see more comments here. What is your take on the use of deep learning algorithms to drive your business? This is all artificial intelligence stuff. There's a lot of it out there, and it's not, I mean, it's good. It's not a bad thing. I guess it is how you use the information you get from it. What do you say, Natalie?
So the topic of artificial intelligence is, it's wonderful, but and remember that whatever we're using artificial intelligence for was created, the algorithm was created by a human, right? So what we're doing here is we're finding ways to automate something that would take a very long time to process in a short period of
Repeatable.
time,
Yeah.
right? And so it's wonderful way to gather information and to learn, to check,
Mhm.
to understand scenarios and so forth. But we cannot make our decisions just based off of that. We still have to have a human taking a look at it and saying, okay, is this going in the direction we want? We have to test it around the values and the purpose that we've established the organization.
Absolutely. I mean, I totally agree with you, Natalie. It is a good thing. I mean, I have visited websites where I knew definitely I was talking to a robot, no doubt about that. And you come to a point sometimes there are some questions you ask and the robot can't go any further. I've experienced that so many times. Yeah. So yeah, artificial intelligence is all good, but it's got its limits, of course. Customers are fickle. Some organizations take customer loyalty for granted. Absolutely, absolutely, Stella. But the thing is this: it's no longer a seller's market; it's a buyer's market. Okay, and it's all at our fingertips as well. I don't even have to go out. Okay, someone like me, I hate shopping anyway. So these days, online shopping works great for me. I don't like shopping at all. It's strange coming from a woman, right? But I don't. So yeah, I will go to the website that serves me the best. I will go to a shopping site that that I get the best experience from. So yes, customers are fickle, and that includes you and I. That is why organizations cannot rest on their laurels. They must continuously, like Natalie said, keep innovating and thinking of how best to serve us. Absolutely. Algorithms are too impersonal and may tend to suppress clients who do not make enough noise. That is true because, like I said before, they are programmed and sometimes they can't even answer all your questions. What do you say to this, Natalie, about algorithms being too impersonal?
Uh, they're useful, just like you said, they're
Yeah,
useful to a point.
yeah,
Now, again, what we're looking at is the customer experience. And you were talking about having some sort of probably chatbot that was able to help you, but that at some point it stopped. So if I look at that customer experience, did were you satisfied or were you dissatisfied? Did I lose that customer or did I gain a customer? So
exactly.
that's how we're evaluating the usefulness of that technology. Once it creates a satisfied customer, that I'm like, okay, that's something that I want to continue using. But if I start losing customers for these bots, what have I created?
Exactly. Right. And I've got another question here. Now, you have a master's in psychology. How relatable or relevant is that body of knowledge in organizational development? design, and business agility. And the reason I ask you this question is this: on this platform, we are really, really encouraging people to come into the agile space and into the tech space. We are particularly promoting diversity in those spaces. And but often you find that people think, oh, for me to come into the agile tech space, I really need to be technical. I must be able to code and stuff like that. But of course, you and I know that there are a lot of transferable skills that we can bring into these spaces. So, you coming from a psychology background, I know you also have some engineering, or is it electrical background? How has this helped you, and how relatable is it in these spaces?
Okay. So there's two parts to that question that I want to relate to. One is, how does it help me in organizational design? Well, what are organizations but communities of people, right? So they're brought together for a similar mission, goal, or purpose. And so psychology, and I want to differentiate psychology from coaching. Psychology looks at the wounding that we've gone through, looks at our spirit experience from birth all the way to becoming an adult, and looks at how that impacts our life choices, our ability to function in society.
Yeah.
And so what happens here is that a lot of times people, um, we're all going to go through some sort of trauma, even if it's turning on the news. We're all exposed to trauma, and that trauma turns into fear, right? And that fear will be projected onto others until it is worked through. If I fear something, I'm going to continue and that response over and over and over again until I work through and come to terms with that. And so that's the part of psychology. Coaching takes you from here, from where I am right now, and then looks forward and says, what would happen to any individual if you had someone right behind you saying, you can do it?
Hmm.
You have the potential to go there. You and really looked at your greatest self. How amazing is it to be capable of what you're capable of doing when you
Hmm.
have someone that truly believes in you?
Hmm.
And now I'm going to loop that into that first part of that question where it talks about people that didn't have a background in engineering and want to come into the agile space, maybe a scrum master, release train engineer, a coach, and so forth. I like to think about it as T-shaped skills. Every
Yeah.
individual has T-shaped skills. The top part of the T, the horizontal line, are all the different skills that you've dabbled in. You might have some skills in communication, in conflict resolution, in coding, in testing, in UI design. All of those skills are important. They're all different strengths you bring to an organization.
Exactly.
Then there's a vertical skill. That's something that you've really dove deep on. And for one person, that's coding, another, that's conflict management, another person, that can be testing or UI and graphics.
Yep.
We need a diverse set of skills to come together in the team. What's important, though, and I can't emphasize this enough, is that is to come to that T-shaped skill place as part of a team with a growth mindset. We are not technical or not technical. We have been exposed or learned technical skill sets or not yet. And so right now, if you look at Americans, I know you have little children. Have they learned to code? I know that the folks are learning to code at very young ages. A lot of the kids at 4 and 5 years old are playing with computers and learning to drag and drop. If
Yeah.
you can have a conversation with another human, you can have a conversation with a machine. And so there is nothing blocking you from being able to code except for your own limiting beliefs.
And I mean, there's nothing blocking us from, you know, coding if we wanted to learn it. But the point is that it's not even all about coding. There's just so much that we can do I mean, I often say that everyone that works in a hospital is not a surgeon. Okay? Not everyone that works in a hospital is a surgeon. The same goes for the technology space. Not everyone that works in the technology space has to know how to code
Yeah.
or needs to learn how to code. But there's so much else going on in that space that you can leverage. In terms, for example, you talked about the Scrum Master role. the release train engineer role, the RTE, you don't have to be able to write a line of code. The product owner role, the user experience, the user interface, you don't have to be able to, code. Even documentation, there are some people, all they do in this spaces is document.
Yep. What I do encourage though is
Yeah,
that you be open to learning so that you can have a good conversation together
that
with
is
those
it.
folks.
The growth
That's it.
mindset. The growth
One
mindset.
person is going to be really good at conflict resolution, the other
Hmm.
person at coding, the other person at testing. But
Yeah,
I'm going to take an interest
yeah,
in how do you do testing.
yeah.
I'm going to be open and listening. I'm not going to say, hey, I'm not a tester, so I don't do this.
Exactly. And that is the cross-functional team we always aspire to, establishing when we set up our agile teams. Because like you said, we want the T-shape. I mean, sometimes we even talk about the pie shape, and we want the T-shape
Oh, I like that.
profile,
Yes.
so that, because look at it this way, if we have a team and we have only one tester, for example, what does that mean if that tester goes on holiday or if that tester falls ill? So nobody else can do the testing. And that is where the growth mindset comes in, to say, you know what, I can find out a little bit more about testing. I can learn a little bit more about that, or a little bit more about business analysis, which is a commitment we're having within the team to say we want to create a cross-functional team. So that is really, really important. But for the people who are outside of technology and agile, we're trying to encourage them to say, you know what, you don't need to be able to write a line of code. There's so much else you can do in these spaces. If this, is something you want to try out, do not shy away. Nathalie, believe it or not, we have just 5 minutes to the hour. Time goes very quickly when we're having fun, isn't it? A big thank you to our audience. Please link up with Nathalie. Now, Nathalie has a ticket to give away. She has a ticket to the Agile 2022 conference to give away. Isn't that awesome? We already have giveaways on Sincerely Agile with Mary. That is great. Now, if you would like to get this ticket, what I want you to do is to make a comment on the LinkedIn post. Please make a comment on this LinkedIn post to say, I am interested. Okay, I am interested. That is all I need you to put in. We will then do a raffle, and whichever name is drawn, you will get a ticket to attend the Agile um, um 2020. Is it, sorry, 2022 Agile 2022 conference. So if you're interested, please just put a comment in this post. I am interested in attending the conference, and we will do a draw and make sure you get the ticket to attend. Thank you all so much. Nathalie, I cannot thank you enough for joining me here today on Sincerely Agile with Mary. This is her website. Please link up with her on LinkedIn and check out her website. She does amazing work with leadership. Now, next Sunday, I will not be here, and I will not be here the Sunday after too. It's my birthday in a week.
Oh,
And
Nathan.
yes, it is my birthday in a week, and I want to disappear somewhere. I want to disappear somewhere. I think I really do need that break. I have been really, really busy, and I do need that break. And yes, we have some comments here. Um, in on LinkedIn, put a comment saying, I am interested in attending the conference. And all the people that do that, I will take their names, I will do a raffle, and whichever name is drawn, I'll perhaps ask my grandson to pick a name out of the basket. And whatever name is drawn, you will get the ticket. But it has to be on LinkedIn, not on Facebook, not on YouTube, on LinkedIn. Leave a comment on the post on LinkedIn, on this post, on this recording, and I will get back to you with that one free ticket. It's just one ticket available. A well-deserved break, absolutely, Stella. Absolutely. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ronke. Thank you so much, Nathalie. I am interested, Nathalie Brochstein and Mary Lanio, and I hope to be selected for the Agile 2020. Well, go ahead, go and participate. Put your name down. I'm just excited that there's a giveaway on my show. As you can see, I'm just grinning from ear to ear. So thank you all so much. Thank you for spending your Sunday afternoon with me. Nathalie, I cannot thank you enough for joining me on Sincerely Agile with Mary. Have a good evening, everyone. Bye bye. So see you in about 3 weeks' time, something like that. Bye
Thank you
bye.
so much. Bye bye.